All right, guys, welcome back to the Outerzone, the official podcast of Formula Drift, and it's a little different. So, unfortunately, my streak of being able to release a podcast every single week during the season without missing a week, all that fun stuff, has unfortunately come to a bit of an end. So, this one is a little bit different. It's going to be a throwback episode to my old podcast, which is called the Pistonhead Podcast, which if you do want to go back and listen to all those, you can. They're still on Spotify. But this is an old one with Matt Field. This is actually as he was, I believe, just beginning to build the Corvette. So definitely a throwback. But yeah, unfortunately, 2 Amazon packages were lost. I had the guest run out to Best Buy, pick up a microphone there. Then we ran into a bunch of internet issues and a bunch of computer issues. Did I mention Florida's being hit with a hurricane? Not conducive to making this episode come out. So had to resort to plan B, not something I wanted to do, but I do think you guys will get a super cool kick out of this episode. It is a throwback. This is Matt Field, kind of back in the day. Different insight if you've, I will say, my podcasting ability has gotten better since then. So is my audio quality. This has been digitally remastered, if you will, but it does, you might hear some artifacting in it. There is also significantly more swearing than what you're probably used to in this show. So I'm just letting you know that if you got kids, you're sensitive to that, might not be the best one for them. But really, really sorry that we weren't able to bring on a new guest for this one, and we kind of had to use our plan B. I am going to be doing my best to get things back up and running. We don't know at this time how we're going to be affected by the hurricane, so I can't promise anything as of yet. There will be a podcast at Irwindale, and then we have a kind of a cool one lined up after that, a couple cool ones lined up after that. So hopefully this is it. Hopefully this is the last time we have to do this, but I appreciate all your support, and enjoy a throwback with Matt Field.
Yeah, just wear the beanie. That's it.
That's pretty solid. I feel good about that. That's a good way to start this. Get the attitude up high, you know.
Good trade 2 J's if you could become Wolverine.
Where are you getting all this information?
I definitely heard some rumors about it. Are you still going? I get goosebumps thinking about it because it's like you can hear them get.
The car, I was going to qualify and I was going to drive it out the racetrack.
Just threw the hood over the ditch and
Longest employee of knots.
You did some digging there, huh?
Hey, if you're watching this on video, look at the screen right now. Yeah, a little different, right? What do we think? If you're on audio, it's time to head over to YouTube and take a look because I'm not going to tell you what's going on here. But thoughts? Maybe? I don't know. Leave a comment. But you can't get this yet unless, maybe we get a whole bunch of people that ask for it. But what you can get, one of these. You can get your very own Teal Toque. Head over to shopfd.com. Use podcast24 at checkout. Save yourself 20%. Like I said, these aren't available yet, but I'm thinking about it. What do we, I talked about bringing back bucket hats, but yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, all you audio people, head over to YouTube. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, not much. There you go. That sounds good.
Yeah, it definitely sounds better.
Yeah, I was trying to do call through Skype's cell phone service, and I was like, oh, I got a shit ton of credits left over, so I was like, might as well see if it works.
Oh, well, I guess it worked. Yeah, it's weird though. It said unknown, like on the caller ID, but this is good.
Cool. Yeah, so just a quick rundown before we really get going. Don't worry about swearing, anything like that. It's pretty low key. It's usually just me shooting the shit with people. I've had a few different guys on that I think when I sent you the email that you know, but yeah, just more of a conversation, anything. And if there's anything you want covered, awesome. If there's anything you don't want covered, then just let me know ahead of time and I won't talk about it.
Oh, I'm pretty open. I don't really mind talking about anything. It's all good with me.
Cool. Yeah, I just sometimes guys are like halfway through projects or something, like they can't release details and like, hey, just don't bring this up because I can't really talk about it. So, I figured if that comes up, you're just gonna be like, yeah, it's about as much as I can say.
No, I'm pretty open with the whole thing with what I have going on. I find it's better that way.
Yeah, than keeping secrets and shit like that.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's all keeping secrets during the off season all the time, and I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah, you're out there, promoting as much of that build as you possibly can.
Exactly. Most people would have released what they're doing a week before Long Beach, and I'm trying to build hype throughout the whole year. I think it works better social media wise for sure.
Yeah, I really don't see a need for keeping a lot of that stuff back. Like I understand with some guys in their programs, there's certain development stuff or big contracts that you have to keep, hush hush. But That being said, in the age of social media kind of ruling drifting, you want to get as much hype going before Long Beach even is a thought, right?
Exactly. And right now, you see most guys out there are not talking about what they're doing. They're just reposting old shit throughout the season. And I'm one of the few people out there consistently coming up with content that's new and what's going on right now. So that's kind of how I prefer to do it.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of guys, like we're seeing, Chris and Ryan with full teardowns and stuff like that right now. Chelsea's just banging around in BMWs and Vaughn hasn't released anything, but it is always funny to see how everybody takes the off season.
Exactly, it really is.
So I've already started going, so don't worry about that end. But yeah, so how's the off season been for you?
I haven't even gotten to the point where I can call it off season, because I'm doing a whole D1 championship in China as well.
Yeah.
Rounds 4 and 5 were a couple of weeks ago, and in 2 weeks I fly back out for round 6. The championship was supposed to be finished in December, but because there's this communist party thing where basically the country shuts down for a week as they discuss what's going on within the government within China, they had to reschedule one of the rounds, and the only time they could do it was in January. So my 2017 D1 championship season will end in 2018 January, and then it'll start back up in a couple of months. So I haven't even hit that off season time yet. Right after Irwindale, I think the day after is when I rolled the Corvette in and started working on it. And I feel like I was a little late to the party with that one as well. But with all the stuff that went on throughout the season with my S14, smashing the wall in Montreal, and then we had a motor let go right before Irwindale that we had to change out. I had literally 0 time to start on the Corvette. So as soon as one season ended, I dove into rebuilding or building the Corvette, and still currently trying to finish out a 2017 season as well. So nonstop.
Now there was I can't remember where I heard it, but there was rumors that you decided on the Corvette after Grid Life South and after chatting with Dirk. I wasn't sure how true that was.
So I've had my eye on a Corvette for a little while now, about a year and a half, I think, but I wasn't sold on it. I was kind of into Mustang a little bit at one point. Not sure what I wanted to do. There was a possibility of me going to drive with Vaughn for a little bit, and that was on the table. And then as that kind of trickled out and other doors started opening, I started looking more and more to the Corvettes. And of course, I looked at Dirk's car to see what was going on. One of the very few Corvettes at that level that's drifting right in front of me. So always, every single round, I would watch how his car reacted, how he drove my decision. And I talk a lot with Dago as well. We obviously drive D1 China together. We did FIA stuff together. I've done Formula D Japan with him before.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty open lines of communication. Now that he's getting into LS stuff, he calls me all the time with one of our friends who translates for us, and we have LS conversations and Corvette conversations. So speaking with him and looking and seeing how Dirk's car drove, and then really the big deciding factor that Park Shop Max wanted it and is starting to develop more stuff for other cars other than S chassis. For a long time, they had S chassis stuff, a couple of Toyota stuff, and that was basically it. And now they're really expanding their market and trying to do more things, American cars, E36 stuff. So they were, the owner of Park Shop Max, Dan, was like, what are you going to do? And I talked about a Vet, and then he went out and bought a C7, and then I drove that, he drifted that. It was like, this is what we need to do. So he really pushed me into just making the commitment and doing it and buying the car and getting started. Because once you buy the car, you're committed. And I hadn't bought the car yet. I was still kind of saying, I'm shopping around looking for the right one. And he's like, nope, here we go. Let's do it. And, once we pulled the trigger, I'm very, very glad that I made the decision.
Yeah, I see. I've seen a lot of different companies really starting to broaden their part selection just based on the fact that the traditional drifting platforms are really starting to be used up, and it's becoming harder and harder to find clean versions of them. So it'll be interesting to see if we get more and more companies that were traditional to one platform, jump on board with other ones. I'm starting to see guys The Fox bodies have always been around, but I'm starting to see a lot more of them come out of the woodwork. Obviously E36, E46, and now Corvette. So it's super interesting what was considered, the best drift platforms, the S13, the S14, and the S15 for some. It's they're disappearing almost faster than anybody can put a handle on.
That was a huge deciding factor in why we're going with a Corvette and C6 specifically, as the prices of all these S chassis and even E36s are starting to go up. E36 is not quite yet, but S chassis are getting ridiculously expensive. If you want to find a decent S14 to start out with, there's $5 or $6 grand, and then you immediately have to do a motor swap. A 2J, an LS, an RB, even an SR. And to do any kind of engine swap, to do it right, you're looking at 10 grand, no matter what. But that's 10 grand for the swap, not to mention how much you want to spend on the motor itself, right? Yeah. And by the time you throw suspension and everything else at it, we're looking at $25,000 or $30,000 cars now for like an entry level competition ready Pro-Am drift car. Mm-hmm. So when you go and you take a look at a Corvette, a C5 or a C6 that you can get between 8 to 15 grand, that already has a good engine, that already has a good transmission, that's really only going to need a handbrake and some angle, and you're good to go. The price of that could actually be less than getting a competition S chassis ready. And as I see, the more that the prices go up and on S chassis, and the more that the prices come down on Corvettes, I just see it being a more and more popular drift car, and I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve. And Part Shop Next has a similar view on they're trying to get ahead of the curve and be ready for when the demand is there.
Now, do you think any of that's going to change when the importing market opens up a little more in the next few years into the States? Like here in Canada, we only have 15-year rule. So, we've had R34s for a while, and I've been to like banger drift days, and guys are bringing out like R34 GTTs. Like it's crazy. But I'm kind of curious if we're going to see that when the 25-year rule's up in the States and we start seeing S15s flood the market.
I think it's not going to change what's going to happen with these other chassis and how these other chassis are going to develop. Yes, it's great that there's going to be more interesting cars out there that are affordable, that you can drift. R32s, 3s, 4s, all the S15s, and, all the JZXs and all that. But those are cars that are already drifted. Those are cars that are already branded as a drift car. So as you were talking about the 5.0 Mustang stuff, like I never even considered that to be a drift car at all. Yeah. Right? And it's funny because one of my buddies, Robert Pasqua, Whole Shot Rob, he honestly is one of the very key influential people in making the 5.0s and the Fox bodies into a drift car. Yeah. Like now in the Northern California drifting scene, it is ridiculous how many Fox bodies there are out there. And that's because Rob started developing stuff and started driving them well and opening up people's eyes. So just how that took over, it didn't slow down, or it wasn't dampered or hurt in any way by the E36 now emerging big. So I think the Corvette is going to do as the Corvette is, regardless of any kind of import rules or anything like that.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring Rob up, because I've actually indirectly communicated with him. We did a 1988 Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupe drift build. We wanted to do like Project Drift Chicken's what we called it, but essentially it's a Fox body Mustang with just this massive boat placed on top of it. All the suspension, I think actually it's got wider, lower control arms. It's got a couple of things that the Fox body guys look for, but I was back and forth with him on a couple of, like, I think it was the Ford Motor Company drift page or something like that. And then I started doing some digging and then realized the connection back. I'm like, fuck, man, you forget how small of a world, this whole drifting community is. As much as it's huge, like it's really not that big.
Right. It hasn't gotten to the place where it's completely blown out and you don't hear of people, especially when you're doing something unique in the drifting world. People take notice, and because of social media, we have the ability to see everything that's going on within our community.
Yeah. Now, how have you found? I'm just before we did this, I did a little bit of creeping, just as a good host, and I've seen your social media in particular. It was pretty constant for years, but in the last two, like, it looks like you actually made a conscious effort to be like, look, if I'm going to do this as a career, I've really got to buckle down. I got to keep content coming, and obviously partnering up with the guys at Donut was huge as well. But what was that main trigger for you when you're like, shit, like this is what I have to do now?
So I always known it's something that I had to do, right? But being the team owner, the driver, the guy who has to get the sponsors, manage the budget, spend the budget, it's very difficult, and I was spread very, very thin. I was also a couple of years ago, I was going to school. So I was going to school, running my business, and doing Formula Drift all at the same time. So I was just spread so thin. When I finally graduated and got my degree in business management, it allowed me, I was always so busy all the time that with one less thing, my mind was able to be opened and start considering and start doing other things. And between being done with school and starting to work with a company called the ID Agency, they really, really opened up my mind of what needs to happen and what I should be doing. And it's very easy for somebody to tell you, hey, you need to be doing this. But when you don't know how to do it or how to manage your time or how to do it efficiently, it's much easier said than done. But the funny thing is now that I'm doing those things, it is easy because it's important to me now. Whereas before, what was important to me was not failing my classes and going to Formula Drift. So that was my 100% focus. And now that I can focus on things like social media and presence, and the thing with teaming up with Donut made my life way, way easier and allows me to think of fun, creative things, pitch it to these people, get the okay or the no, and then give it a shot. Whereas before, I didn't have the ability to do it because I was spread so thin and I wasn't partnered up with the right people. Working with ID Agency and Donut Media has allowed me to really start my social media push. And now it's doing great. And I feel like I'm, one of the few drivers who has the ability to create this content. There's not a lot of drivers out there who are doing it. You got Turek, you got Vaughn, you got Chelsea, you got Forsberg, and there's not a lot of people outside of that are consistently coming out with content that's getting good views.
Yeah, and I think that really kind of, like, it's great. It's awesome that it's happening, but it kind of sucks as well because there's so many guys, even that we're seeing in the lower bracket, like let's say sub 16 in total rankings, that are really cool guys and have amazing personalities and do really neat stuff. But because they haven't taken that time, it's really shut a couple of doors for them. Like right off the bat, like I think Kaufman, I think Cameron Moore, like those two guys, if you get them out of their shell, if they were to show what their real life is like, what they do, and all the crazy stuff, like I've seen a little bit more out of Cameron Moore this year, but I think we could almost fall in love with those drivers a bit more, and that kind of helps build their confidence, which helps them become a better driver, get better sponsors, etc., and so on, right? So it's I could see how it is overwhelming and it is difficult, but like you said, once you start getting into the habit of posting all the time, interacting with fans, answering messages, it just becomes daily routine.
Exactly. But you have to make a conscious effort to do that. And those guys, I feel they are in the position where they can make time for it. It's just figuring out how to do it or having somebody tell you how to do it. Because if you can't figure out on your own, like with me, I'm not that great. I don't like Facebook, for instance. Like I prefer Instagram. I hate Twitter. Snapchat's cool and all if you want some nudie pics, but like my main thing was Instagram because I liked it. So recently I've been making a conscious effort to update my driver profile and not using my personal page and re-uploading content and posting videos specifically to Facebook versus just pushing them through Instagram. And I didn't know those things. And once I knew that this is how I should be doing it, it opened up doors and made things easier, and then obviously leads to bigger and better things.
Yeah, the whole social media side of it is absolutely insane, and unfortunately, companies like Facebook and Google do not make it easy to really stay at the forefront of it and work towards building your crowd, your following. Every time it seems to be that somebody gets the algorithm figured out or gets the system figured out, they swap it up, and then it's like, okay, back to the beginning. What do I need to do now? What's going to, make it big, right?
Right, exactly. And having the advice from the guys at the ID Agency or Donut, and me figuring out the little intricacies of how you post a video in a certain way and getting your target audience figured out and narrowed down within Facebook, within the settings. Like I didn't know how to do that stuff. I never even knew that that was a thing until it was pointed out to me.
Yeah, it's pretty recent. It's pretty neat though that you can almost select it down to like, if you really wanted to, you could whittle down a post to like 10 people and just be like, hey,
Yeah,
these 10 people are going to see this and really interact with it. Now
It's really cool. But it makes things easy when you have it figured out. But if you don't got it figured out, fuck, you have no idea what you're doing.
now, are you finding sponsors and companies that you're working with asking for those figures and asking for analytics based on your social media?
So I don't find necessarily that companies are out there asking for them. I won't say that I'm like, hey guys, sponsor me. And they're like, okay, give me your social media stats.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of something that is understood that you should be including in your pitch, in your packet, in your proposal to each company. And between tailoring it specifically and showing different companies the different views and the people that interact with you and your page, it's kind of just something that's a given that you want to make sure that you include. But I wouldn't say that I have companies specifically asking for them. But, because it's kind of where we're at now with the knowledge and the information that we're given, it's kind of like, if you don't know to give me these things, we're probably, this sponsorship is not going to go the way you want it to go. You should already have that in your plan before you even approach.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, for sure. I know I've run into personally a couple companies I've dealt with where they're like, hey, when you're going to do a video on this or you're going to do a podcast with us, like we need stats, we need analytics within 6 months after posting to see if our investment was worth the times. And I don't know if that's something new that I've run into in the last year. I just wasn't sure how across the board that's going yet, or if it was just a kind of a small creator kind of thing where they're looking at it like, hey, this guy's not huge. Like he's, like our posts are getting there, but I found 2 companies I dealt with were like, hey, we're going to give you this stuff. We're expecting X amount of deliverables out of it. And then after 6 months after that, we need all the stats on the media that you came out with.
Right. See, it's difficult dealing with companies like that because right off the bat, it sounds to me like they're already expecting a certain something of return, right?
Oh, for sure.
And in social media and especially motorsports oriented social media, you can't promise anything. You can say, this is what I have done. This is what my stats and what some of my promotions have gotten. But, being able to promise them anything is very, very difficult. We're not a marketing company, but we're providing almost the same type of services that a marketing company would. And you kind of just got to try not to make promises that you can't deliver on.
Yeah, it's one of those, look, this is everything that's happened in the past. Just trust me. I'm going to put as much effort into this as possible.
Exactly.
If everything goes well, awesome. If it doesn't, like, hey, I gave it everything I could, and maybe there's something else we have to look at.
Exactly.
So you probably don't remember this, but you and I met very, very briefly at Road Atlanta for Grid Life.
Was I drunk?
I think we all were. This is end of the night, Saturday night. I think it was you and Odie, and there's a bunch of us all drinking down at the RTR pits. But I had noticed, just off the top of my head, that you had a GoPro mounted to your chest at that point in time.
Yeah. I basically shot an entire Grid Life POV for my whole experience. And for those of you listening that haven't watched it, log on to Donut Media's YouTube channel or their Facebook and watch it. It's a blast.
I haven't seen that one.
It's pretty funny because I had this idea. I told Donut that I wanted to do it, and they were kind of like, okay. And I was like, well, how much would you charge me to edit it? Because this is before I had solidified my partnership for the year with Donut. And they were like, maybe this, maybe that, maybe we'll talk about it. We'll see.
Yeah.
So I just said, screw it. I'm going to shoot it anyways. And I did it all on my own, shot everything. And it was so much work between dumping cards constantly throughout the day, changing out batteries with GoPros. Everyone else would get out of the cars and hang out, and drink water, and eat pizza. And I was immediately, dropping footage onto my computer and changing out batteries and figuring out what the next shot was going to be. And it was a lot of work, but it came out really well. And the funny thing is that I got Donut all the footage, and they were like, okay, well, how do you want to do this? They sent me a rough edit. And I said, I want to make these changes. And then it kind of went quiet because we were going into Irwindale and all this other stuff. And we didn't really say anything. And I figured, oh, they're going to take their time. We can sit on this footage. It doesn't really matter. If it doesn't come out, whatever. And then one of my buddies messaged me, dude, your grid light video is fucking sick. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, on Donut's page. I was like, no way. Like, go on Donut's Facebook, and sure enough, there's my video. And I watched it. I'm like, okay, they made the changes that I asked for. It came out great. And then I messaged Jesse Wood, my main point of contact over at Donut Media, and I'm like, yo, you didn't even tell me that you dropped my video? He's like, oh yeah, I forgot, my bad, but hey, it's doing great, so be pumped about it. I'm like, no, I am pumped, but like, you legit didn't even tell me. So it feels really good that that goes on, you know, so because there's a lot of people that would put a bunch of effort into it and then drop it and then maybe not have it do so well, but I literally forgot about it, and then bam, you know, within the hour, it's got 50,000 views or something like that. So I was like blown away, and it was just, you know, me spending my time getting the footage, working my ass off, and then Donut took over and created something really cool.
I don't know how I missed that. I'm going to have to go back and watch it. I'm curious if I made the cut. I doubt it though, because by the time I was in frame, we were all pretty messed up.
Yeah, I recorded that whole night, and they used a couple of it, and I think it's for good measure because there's a lot of pro drivers that we were all pretty drunk, and there was a lot of shit talking going on. So I think they showed the appropriate amount.
The podcast before this, do you know Brooks Church from Team Rowdy?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had Brooks on, and him and I were chatting a little bit out of it, and we kind of wrapped up, and we were chatting after. He's like, hey, can we take out a section? I'm like, I think I know which section we're talking about. So
you're right.
Him and I chatted on a couple things. Yeah. It was quite the night though. It was definitely quite the night.
Life is freaking epic.
Are you coming back?
I talked to Greg, and he was like, hey man, you're part of the family now. So anytime you want, our doors are open. We'd love to have you. We had a blast, and I'm hoping that Falcon does the same thing that they did this year with the Grid Life.
Bring the food.
If not, then you know, at least I have my S14, and maybe I'll take the S14 out, or maybe I'll even put the S14 on the Falcon rig and have them take it out. So I hope that Falcon does their thing, but if not, I still want to figure out a way to get out to at least one of them, because it was way too much fun.
Yeah, it's nuts. I've been lucky that we got on to that event from its first year when it was just this really tiny little festival. And for us, Michigan's like, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours driving, and then Atlanta's 19. But we haven't missed a single one yet, man. It's outstanding. It's just an amazing event.
I don't know if you knew this or not, but tickets are on sale for FD, and I get a way that you can save a little bit of money. So when you're buying your tickets, right before checkout, there's a little box that says like coupon code. Put in FD podcast. Boom, saved you some money. Don't believe me? Go try it. Seriously, go do it. See what happens.
Yeah, it really is. And I hope that they start doing something out west, because I know that it'll do really well out here as well.
Yeah, I kind of hope they don't, only because that's like 30 to 40 hours of driving for me, and I've kind of committed to being in all of them.
Yeah, that's kind of something that you put the equipment and car and everything on a rig and have somebody drive it, and you try to fly it.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I've only ever had one car there. Did you ever see the diesel Miata?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so that was the only car I've ever taken to Grid Life is after we built that. And after that, all the hassle of trailering a car down, I'm like, look, I'm not a good enough driver to even apply for this now. So I'm just going to go down as media and have a good time and see all these people I only get to see, once or twice a year. So
exactly.
I'm not a wheelman enough to do that event any justice.
Right. Well, it's nothing wrong with just going. You got to enjoy yourself as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, so you're saying you've got D1 and stuff coming up. You've got it between like maybe you and Osbo. You got to be putting down like the most amount of track time out of anybody in FD.
I'm very, very lucky that I get to drive so often, and it's been a problem in years past that the only time that I would drive would be FD, and a lot of FD drivers have that same problem because we pour everything into our FD cars and our FD program that it just leaves no budget, no time, no energy in order to do other things. And I am very lucky that I have fallen into the D1 gig, because it's a whole nother series. It's a whole nother way of driving. It's a whole nother way of working with the team and the spotter and how I drive the car and how you set up the car and everything. So it's it's good that it's different, and it does provide me with much more seat time. And even this year, I've really started to shift some focus into grip driving. Forever and ever, I was like, yeah, it's cool, but I'm a drifter.
Yeah.
And I've kind of come to the point in my career where I don't want to be branded as just a drift driver or even a Formula Drift driver, which is why in years past, when Formula Drift started the World Championship, I was one of the first guys to hop into the World Championship. Now I started traveling all over. I get invited to these events, and I find the more international driving you do, the more stuff you get invited to, because people see that you're out there driving and that you're willing to do it. So when they say, hey, we want a guest driver, who do you think we should bring? Now I feel myself that I'm pretty high up on the list of people that they want to bring out to these events. And that just kind of spirals and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I feel very lucky and very fortunate that I have been able to drive all these places that I have been. And, I hope that it just keeps going.
Is there one track that you've driven where you're like, look, if I had to pick a single track to drive for the rest of my life, this is going to be it? Now, it's a tough question, but considering the broad spectrum of places that you have driven, I think it's a fair question.
I would have to say that Irwindale and Road Atlanta, even though those are FD specific tracks, that those are some of my favorite tracks out there. Road Atlanta, especially because you have the road course. So if I wanted to just do grip driving for ever and ever, I could be happy driving there. If I wanted to do drifting, obviously it's an epic drift track. And
yeah,
those things are really, really cool. There's some other places, but a lot of the other places I haven't been in an FD level car there. So maybe if I was driving my FD car, which is, a car that I obviously love, I might have a different answer, but the gnarliest, craziest, most fun car that I've ever driven is my FD car. And those are the places that I enjoy driving it.
Yeah, I could see that. They're definitely built. Both of those are built for a very professional level car. So that makes sense. Whereas, something like Ibiza, you could go, but you may not want an FD car there. It'd be more of just like a banger. That way you can, go and really have a good time on such a narrow course. Well, one of several.
Yeah. And for me, the only place that I've driven on Ibiza has been the FD track. What is that, like? Or wet? Or I don't know what they call it, but remember. I haven't got the option yet to go fully exploring in a car that you just drive around. Like, I've only ever been there for FD. So I know I'm missing out. I'm sure my answer would change if I was able to spend a week there like a lot of the guys do, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, one day. There's always time, right? You just
last event that Aaron went to. Of course, Andy and the guys at Power Vehicles would completely take care of me if I ever wanted to go out there. God, it's been very, very hectic.
I lost you there for a second, but all I caught was something about Power Vehicles and Aaron and hectic.
Yeah, right. I just got home, so let me walk in and I'll pick up on Wi-Fi. Crap.
No worries.
LTE at my house too. But yeah, it's just I plan on going out to one of the Matsuris, and I'm sure the guys at Power Vehicles would help me out and be very gracious with their hospitality, and just haven't quite had time for it yet. But that will change. It's just like anything, you got to make time if it's something you want to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how's work been? Like, how's the drift shop been?
The shop is busier than ever. Funny, because usually this time of year we slow down a lot, just with the holidays and everything else. And this is one of the first years that we haven't really noticed that much of a slowdown. And on a consistent basis, there's 3 cars in the shop getting worked on and 4 or 5 cars waiting to come in the door. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot going on. But fortunately, my crew chief that's been working with me for many years, Ty Milner, actually came on as a partner in my business. So now he is fully a part of what's going on. So that makes life much easier, because he's there for FD things, and we can get stuff figured out and sourced and done on the FD car. And then he's there to help run the business at the same time. So that makes things easier. And now I have 2 guys working full time basically, and then shop on my business partner and office manager and spotter, Daniel Chow. It's a busy shop, but now that I have the people there, it's getting easier.
Yeah, you can kind of step back every once in a while, take a breather, and kind of like look over it and be like, okay, if I'm not here for, every single waking moment, it's not like the wheels are going to fall off. I can take 10 minutes and go do something else and not have to worry about my phone exploding. That's got to be a really kind of liberating feeling.
Yeah, I found that I have to put, my number one has to be Formula Drift in this program and my driving, and then the shop has to come number two. So it's good to have people that can put the shop as number one and kind of alleviate some of the stress and handle a lot of stuff that I can't handle. And, I wasn't always able to do that. This is something that's more recent, and it seems to be working out.
So how was the season traveling with Odie? Was it good, bad, otherwise?
Oh, it's great. I mean, Odie and I have been friends for a long time, basically since we both first started drifting. And when we came up with the frenemies concept and pitched it to Donut Media, and it's funny because we both wound up with teal and blue cars the same year, both ended up with the same chassis with, similar engine packages with similar suspension. And it's really funny how it worked out. But Odie and I have a very good bond and friendship in that we're not just pals. We exchange a lot of information. We help each other on the car setup, on marketing strategies, we attack sponsors together. It's a very good partnership that we have that's very beneficial to both of us.
Yeah, he seems I only met him very briefly and talked to him for maybe 15 minutes, but he seems a very kind of relaxed and put together guy who's does not he just from this, it's tough because obviously I don't know the guy, but he just seems like one of those guys who will really kind of stand back and watch what's going on and then be like, okay, this is what we're going to do, instead of just kind of like, okay, let's just rush into it and then make mistakes and figure it out. He seems to be very put together, if I had to make an assessment on him.
Right. Odie's a very methodical person, and he's a little bit quiet and reserved, and he thinks things through, and it's great because we have two very different personalities with the kind of the same goal. So that's why Frenemies also works really, really well.
Yeah, you guys are, I'm hoping doing a season 2 on that because I did enjoy it.
Yeah, we're definitely coming out with the season 2, and we are actually, filling up sponsorship spots and kind of trying to expand it a little bit. This year was being the first year we had a rough concept of what we wanted to do and the direction that we wanted to go. And we did exactly what we wanted to do. And going into season 2, speaking with the fans and people who are commenting and sharing and getting back to us, a lot of people want to see more behind the scenes stuff. So our plan for season 2 is trying to have content being created and frenemies being filmed before the round, after the round, and then as well as during the round, so that you get a little bit more of what it takes to make a Formula Drift car go around the track. That it's not just, hey, we're here at the track, let's have a great time. It's way more than that, and we hope to be able to show the people that.
Yeah, that's something I do think that's really lacking just in general with the drifting scene, where you see it a lot more in other forms of sports and media. Boxing's a great one, football's another good one, and obviously they've got the budgets to do it, but seeing all the preparation, UFC is another amazing example of how they really break down everything that goes into the event before the event actually happens. So it will be nice to see somebody else kind of taking that on and being like, look, it's not just show, like everybody talks about it, but very rarely do you get to see what happens a day before, an hour before, a week before, everything that goes together just to get the car there, let alone even start the engine and put some laps down.
Right. I think it's a little bit difficult in motorsport because so many people are reserved, as they should be, right? Like they do things a certain way, and they have been doing it. They do that for a reason, and they don't want to share all that information with everybody. So motors, like, when you're training, a lot of boxers they show their training, they do this because it's kind of relatively known the steps that it takes to get there, right? Yeah. But in motorsport, people are a little bit more secretive with what they have going on. So I hope to be able to break that because, like you said, you don't see a lot of that. I'm really, really hoping with Frenemy Season 2 that you're going to be able to get much more insight into what's going on. And it's perfect because Odie has his business and runs his FD program, and I have my business and run my FD program. So you'll be able to see the differences in our programs and our personalities and our businesses. And then obviously when we get to the track, you'll be able to see the similarities.
Yeah. It's something it's definitely something that I think is fascinating to a lot of people. And I've explained this to, people who don't older generation that doesn't understand YouTube. And like, well, why would somebody watch this? Like, why would you do that? Like, we made a video the other day of just putting up like a tent, like a little car cover, because we've got like 6 feet of snow up here, and then it gets a bunch of views. And I was talking to my dad about it. He's like, I don't get it. Why would somebody watch that? And I'm like, because they might live in Brazil and have no idea what it's like dealing with winter and 6 feet of snow and minus 40-degree temperatures. So to them, it's interesting, whereas to us, it's everyday life. And I see the same thing with some of the drivers. We're working on something with a Pro 2 guy from up here. And I said to him, it doesn't matter who it is. It said Riley Sexsmith. I said to him, like, hey, man, you and I have known each other for a while, but nobody knows what you have to go through to get your car down to Atlanta, like from Canada. It's and you obviously know, going across the border into Montreal, the pain in the ass that is. I can only imagine with a pro level car. Thankfully, I guess you don't have to do it this year. Yeah, thankfully you don't have to do it this year.
Though. I mean, I love Montreal, dude. I was one of the few drivers that was behind keeping it on the schedule, and I love it. I mean, I've made a ton of friends there. I love the facility. I love the people. I love the women. I love the food. It's all great. So
that always comes up.
Yeah, man.
Quebec women. It's I definitely think that behind the scenes, just the everyday life of a driver, of an operator, especially because with drifting in particular, you get guys who are owner, operator, manager. Odie, his wife spots for him, like shit like that's amazing. And then you get other guys who they come in and they drive, and that's all they do. They get paid to drive. And then you get other guys who, like, they're taking out fucking as much money as they can. They're remortgaging their house. They're looking at selling their kidney, just to make sure that they keep that dream alive. So it's very interesting to see that spread through, 32, or in this case, less drivers.
Yeah, it's very crazy how, especially drifting, because drifting is such a diverse motorsport. Whereas you look at a lot of the other motorsports, it's like you're either born into a family or your parents spent $1 million before you were 16 to get you in the seat of a race car.
Yep.
And that's not the case in drifting. It is the case in some people,
yep,
but it's not always the case. And it's cool that it's so diverse. And that's really what allows us to have such a strong connection with our fans, is that we are different from the run-of-the-mill race car driver that you have out there, and people are interested in hearing your story.
Yeah, well, even, look at the situation we're in right now. How often would it be that somebody with a small media company is able to contact somebody at the highest level of that particular motorsport and be like, hey, man, you don't know me, but you want to, like, shoot the shit for an hour on a Sunday and just, record it? You cool with that? And it's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, you can't do that with NASCAR. You can't do that with rally. You can't do that with, fucking name your sport. So
yeah, exactly.
It's definitely neat. And then once again, you get events like Grid Life where, I've been to other motorsport festivals where the day's over, the track goes cold. Those guys get in a car and they go back to the hotel and they, have dinner and they go to bed. Whereas, Grid Life or even Formula Drift, from my understanding, the event is over, but the festivities have just begun.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's because our sport is so young and everybody's still excited to be there. We, as much as it is a job, it's still something that we absolutely love. And everybody involved have that same feeling, because most teams and people who work on teams are not out there making a killer living and are going to be able to retire on it. They're there because they love it. And if you love it, you might as well enjoy yourself as much as you can, as often as you can.
Yeah, and even at the highest level, everybody points towards, guys like Ryan and Chris, like, oh, they're the ones at the top of the game and all that stuff. But does Ryan not still live with his brothers, and Chris has got like this little house in California? Like, even at the highest level, it's still extraordinarily modest.
Yeah, it really is. And hopefully that changes, but hopefully it doesn't change and take away from the humanity side of things, because we are all people. And like, Chris is a perfect example, and that's why he's still to this day like my favorite driver, because he's a very humble guy who can do it on his own. Obviously has a great team, but is not living the luxurious life that people might seem to think, and that's drifting.
Yeah, it's definitely very grounded in the fact that And I think eventually money will kind of pollute it. Unfortunately, it's just that's what happens with motorsports. But hopefully, there's still that core group of guys that even if they are making good money, and I think everybody that's in Formula D Pro and even Pro 2 to an extent should be fully funded, should not have to be worrying about their bills or how they're going to pay their mortgage or hey, I'm going to run out of tires this event or but the sport is a fledgling. Like it's not brand new, but it's still very new in the grand scheme of sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And things get better every year. And I hate to hear the people who say the whole drifting ruined my life movement, right? Like the people that tried out Formula Drift bled themselves dry and then blame Formula Drift for their shitty life or whatever, because to me, I didn't have rich parents. I kind of went about this on my own. I was able to get here on my own, and not to say that my parents didn't help me in any way, but they were always there for support, letting me use their trucks and their trailers and all of that. But it's cool that somebody like me who comes from modest and humble beginnings can still make it to the top of the sport. And at some point you're not going to be able to do that, but it's cool that we find ourselves in the place that we can still bring in big money sponsors, but we can start from nothing and get to the top.
Yeah, I think anybody who says that drifting ruined their life was just looking for an excuse to have something to ruin their life. Like it just happened to be, this is the sport they got into. And if you decide to make those financial decisions and they end up being wrong, that's nobody's fault but your own. So and it kind of falls as well into the same thing where there's this huge discussion between grassroots and pro and what you should do and all that shit. And I've talked to a bunch of guys about it, and it's a constant conversation. And for me, I've come to the conclusion that I will never be a pro driver. Don't get me wrong, I would love to drive competition. I think it'd be awesome. But at the end of the day, I build cars and run cars because I enjoy driving. I'm like, I like we talked about the Turbo Coupe. That's not a great drift car. It's an incredibly shit drift car. And I know that going into it, but I enjoy driving something that no one else is going to drive. The car's 16 feet long, doesn't make nearly enough power, but I have so much fun wheeling that thing around because I'm the only guy out there doing it. I'm the only one who's even thought about doing something that stupid, and that's what I get out of the sport. So it's just getting whatever you want out of the sport. If you want to be the best in the world, then that's your choice. If you want to be a guy who goes out and buys a fucking beat up E36 every year, destroys it, final event catches it on fire and roast marshmallows, that's awesome. That's what you want to get out of it. But There's no reason why anybody should be shitting on anybody else's decision.
That's why I never even understood why there is a debate in general about the grassroots versus pro drifting. It's just, it is motorsport. It is drifting. Whatever you choose to do should be your prerogative. And there's no need to even have the discussion. Like, just be happy where you're at, where you want to go, where your friends are at, where they want to go, and be in it together, not against each other.
Yeah, and I'm always curious. I'm not in a lot of other motorsporting worlds anymore, but I don't remember like with drag racing. Like I don't ever remember guys going like, "Oh, look at those NHRA guys. Oh, fucking, this way too much money. Oh, they're destroying the sport because they're running 4-second funny cars and all this shit." It's like, dude, that's what they want to do. If they can come up with that money, if they can build that program, good for them. If you want to just run fucking 14s every weekend and then drive the car back home, awesome. Like, you guys are probably getting the same enjoyment. The guy running the shitty car is probably getting more enjoyment out of it than the guy running the pro car, because if he destroys that car, yeah, that sucks, but that's not his livelihood. That's not everything he's worked towards for years and years gone out the window.
And it's just all different levels, and people need to be okay with it. And I think that it will eventually get there, but the type of people that are into drifting are very opinionated people. So there's always going to be that, but I think it'll either get better or get worse and then go away.
Yeah, it's a motley crew. It's a band of misfits that couldn't find their way anywhere else, right? Like there's not a single guy in drifting that I've met who's just like pretty normal and straight-laced, and everybody's quirky. Everybody's got something that's strange about them, and that's why they were drawn to this sport.
Yeah, exactly right.
So, yeah, I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to chat about, anything else you want to bring up. We're about 45 minutes in so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with it. Just make sure that you guys are out there letting me know what you want to see. I'm here to try to create as great of content as possible and follow along with the Corvette build. And I will absolutely see everybody who's out at the Formula Drift events and Grid Life and come give me a high five and say what's up and let's party.
Yeah, man. I'm working on getting down to FD Atlanta. If I do, I will definitely come say hi. For sure. If not, hopefully I see you at Grid Life. I think you should come out. Either way.
Absolutely.
Even just come as a fan and as a spectator and then just walk around and see if anybody notices you. Be like a fake mustache.
No matter what, I'll find myself in some car. There's no way, no doubt about that.
You just walk up to somebody like, hey man,
let me get a lap.
I just need to borrow this for a few minutes. You should do that. You should just become like the Matt Farah of drifting, where you just like take out other people's drift cars.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that.
I hear you. I don't think there's many people that wouldn't be okay with that. Just line it up. Like, go to an event. Be like, hey, I'm going out to this event. I'm not bringing a car. Give me your drift car. I'll do 3 laps in it and do a video on it, and then we're done.
Man, it's funny. I actually have a ton of people at every event that I go to. Not Formula Drift, of course, but all the have fun events. They're like, dude, you got to take a lap in my car. You got to take a lap in this. And it's funny because I always come out and have a very strong opinion of what they should or shouldn't be doing or what is wrong. And they're like, your steering rack bushings are blown out. Your right rear wheel hub is blown out. Your axle's about to come apart. And people love that. And I obviously enjoy driving all different types of cars. So I have fun.
I think it's just because you have the knowledge of years of being like, look, this has happened to me and I can feel it happening to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been there. I've done that. So
I've broken a lot of shit.
Is there any spoiler you can give us coming up with the Corvette build? I saw a post the other day about some new electronics coming in, but I didn't know if there's anything else neat.
Yeah, I think something that's going to be interesting in this is going to be my first car with a sequential transmission. I bought the Samsonis HGK setup for a Corvette. I think one of the biggest spoilers, there's going to be some new kind of out of the box sponsors that I have coming involved, and it's going to be great. But we're gonna, in the next couple weeks, there'll be some like announcements and press releases and stuff like that. But it's cool because it's very Bay Area tech, and up until this point I haven't really seen that in the drifting world. And being a Bay Area boy and being in the heart of the Silicon Valley, being able to bring on a partner that is based in San Francisco and is a tech company is going to be hopefully fun, interesting, and fresh. And I hope people are excited about it.
I was hoping for another pot sponsor, but I guess technology's fine too.
Yeah, with the levels of sponsors that I have, I think that a couple of people would frown on it. And I have had the option. As living in California, you have a lot of friends who do that on a very big level.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point where, I don't want to tarnish anything, and it's legal in California now, but you still have sponsors outside of California that might not have those views, and you have to be as politically correct as you possibly can. So for me, a tech sponsor is a little bit more aligned to what I'm going for than a weed sponsor.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Hopefully, whatever that tech is, they can involve some of said tech into the car. Maybe we can see something that hasn't been done before. I don't know. Obviously,
it's going to be kind of out of the box and interesting. And right. It's going to be out of the box and interesting, and should hopefully help my program grow.
That's wicked, man. Well, I'm super happy to hear that. Stoked to see how this vet build goes. Definitely watching every episode. And just hopefully, the season starts off well and you're able to just climb those rankings. I think you've been in it long enough that a couple more podiums definitely should be yours.
Thank you very much. The Corvettes, it's a lot to develop a new car throughout the year, but I think that we know what we want out of it. We know the level that it needs to be at. It's just how quickly we can get it there.
Yeah, and I took out stock in a Riznut company, so you just keep using this as much as possible.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, and finally, Donut wanted to kind of build some footage, and obviously traveling and spending time with family. We haven't come out with the last 2 weeks with an episode, but tomorrow another episode comes out, so be on the lookout.
Dude, that's sweet. That's every Monday it's coming out?
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. Tomorrow's Monday, so yeah, it's Tuesday. Yeah, sorry.
My
Tuesday.
clock's all messed up.
Tuesday, there'll be a new episode coming out.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you're the first of my pro guys. I've had a lot of Pro 2 guys on so far, so you took my pro cherry, and hopefully I can get a few more guys on. throw in a good word for Odie. My wife's got a crush on Odie, so she'll freak out if I can get him on the show next.
Absolutely. I'll let him know. For sure.
Perfect. Thanks, man. You have a good night, and I appreciate taking some time to talk with us.
No problem.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.